Yeah. Yeah, let's wait a couple of minutes.
Yeah, sorry.
No, we're live now.
I'm
sorry. I'm already chatting on YouTube anyway.
We are going live.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the starship Enterprise. Its 5-year mission to explore strange new worlds, to seek out new life and new civilization, to boldly go where no man has gone before.
Greetings, salutations, and welcome to Retrek. I'm Captain Jim. With me, of course, Sir Admiral Elliot.
Hi there.
And Dr. Squee.
Dragona.
And we're here to look at, well, first of all, Happy New Year. This is our first show of 2025. And we're starting it off. We're starting it off by looking at 2 episodes of The Next Generation. So when we were covering Lower Decks, one of the episodes we ended up covering was of the father from season 3 of Next Gen. And we really enjoyed looking at Worf and the Klingon stories and everything like that. So we decided we're going to go back and look at some of the other Worf, Discommendation, Sons of Moog, Klingon Civil War, whatever you want to call the arc. I don't think there's an official name.
The art of parenting.
Well, yes. This is what I was going to ask, because I think what we've done here is, because originally we said Sons of Moog, but obviously then we talked about we expanded it out to like that kind of saga. So it's like the family Moog, it seems. Does this mean, and no, let me ask this question, Elliot, then I'll let you jump in. But does this mean we're on a bound appropriately to cover every single Alexander episode? Because fucking hell, strapping guys are better case.
No, it does not.
I actually think this is a good idea, because there's a lot of these episodes we would never cover normally.
That's true. Good reason.
But we do try.
We've never done. We've never avoided it.
We've never avoided it, and I think that if we're doing Sons of Moog, I think it actually branches out to becoming the family of Moog, which has to include Alexander. And to be fair, these first 2 episodes is the start of how to be a better parent.
True.
Just to start off, before handing it back to you, Jim, I may make the argument also that first episode, best Alexander episode ever, and he was technically there.
Yeah. In the last 10 minutes or so, he was there. Yeah.
Well, he was, but just in separated form originally.
Yeah. Well, in that sense, he's always, at least half of him has always been with us. Then whenever we've had Worf, but
oh god, it's going to ruin the episode.
Okay, we'll come to a peace settlement for now. This week and next week, we've got a very clear map of where we're going. Next week is going to be Redemption Parts 1 and 2. So that's very clear. Then we can argue off the air in private about how much Alexander we cover. But yes, the episode.
There's probably less to cover than you think, because we have already covered some of them in DS9.
True.
Also, think about it, if we're just covering times when Worf's seen Alexander, there's barely any, like they can't be with that. Like they're barely in the same room. Like I think actually at the beginning of Deep Space Nine, he goes, "Hey, I recognize it. Wasn't the last time I saw you when your mother put your hand in mine? I think it was like
yeah.
Last time we met, you prick. You met me twice since then."
It's not entirely off the mark. So the episodes we're covering are The Emissary from season 2, which is not to be confused with Emissary from Deep Space Nine.
No, this is Emissary. It's actually DS9. That's the Emissary.
No, it's not. It's the other way around.
You sure?
I am.
Because how I read it, it was listed on the MDB as Emissary for this one.
I thought this one's The Emissary.
No, this one's The Emissary. DS9 is Emissary.
It does say The Emissary on IMDb for this one. I'll just check the DS9.
There you go.
I'm not. Just keep
right. The Wikipedia says it called it Emissary.
Well, either way. So, the point is, we've got 2 episodes of Star Trek, not that far away from each other, called more or less the same thing, which I sort of... DS9, I can kind of give them that, because it's like, no, that's really important to the overall story we're going to be telling for 7 years. So, you know what? Shall we just pretend that they didn't do one called The Emissary earlier on? Anyway, so yes, this is the TNG. So if you were tuning in to hear our thoughts on the DS9 pilot, that is not today's episode.
Just to say, you got it. Like, I don't know if you saw that, but it was Emissary, and exactly correct. I thought they were both the Emissary, so it's funny how we all thought something different. But Jim, you take it.
And this is why you shouldn't do this. It's very confusing.
Should I also just throw out there, because I quite liked watching this episode with all the Barney with Worf, with everything that's happened, the fact that she had to get there in Torpedo and everything. I get the feeling the one who did not want to be amongst them was destined to be the Emissary, which kind of...
I agree.
I mean, it's almost direct from like the Deep Space Nine kind of setup.
Exactly. It's all that is almost a sequel, really.
Yeah.
And then the other episode is Reunion from season 4, which we will come on to. Joining us in the chat is Rose, who says, hello to everybody. Happy New Year plus 15 days. Yes, Happy New Year, Rose.
Rose.
And I don't know how do you always know these things, Rose, but it's fascinating. Next Wednesday, the 22nd, will be the 60th anniversary of the cage being completed in 1965. So, yeah, Star Trek existed in the world for 60 years as of next week.
Oh man, we should at least have a bit up top where we like just briefly mention because like next week, because I mean there was just such a weird journey to it getting to TV, because I believe there was just up to versions of the pilot written even before you get to the cage, before you get to then Kirk, before you get to everything. It's such an excellent for Star Trek.
As we've said before, it's the longest time ever between a pilot and a series getting picked up. You had the cage in 1965, and then Strange New Worlds started in 2022 or what have you. You know, it's...
I was wondering where you're going with that. I thought, oh, is it really? I wasn't aware of that. Oh, you got me.
So, The Emissary then, season 2. And first of all, this is always worth shouting out, is when we get a legitimately good episode in season 2 of TNG, because that season really struggled. Yes, it had writers' strikes. It had Dr. Pulaski.
It had Shades of Grey.
It had Shades of Grey. And so...
I saw that a couple of episodes later. I was like, oh...
I'll be honest, I rewatched it. One of my views of this episode while I was busy working in my model room, so it's sort of playing in the background. And I have actually rewatched Shades of Grey this past week.
Oh, joy.
What? Oh, God. I mean, were your arms just like... It must have been you had to hold a piece in place for 45 minutes. That must have been the thing.
I was busy soldering tiny little surface mount diodes at the time.
I knew if you had any option to move, you would have to pause or like just skip episode. Man, and it was kind of fun this, because obviously one's a sequel to the other, but because of the episode we covered recently, it's either side of that with this story, so it was kind of fun to do it that way. I really enjoyed it.
Because Reunion is a sequel to this and to Sins of Our Father, really. Yeah. So we needed to go back and cover this one if we were going to do it justice.
Okay, Sins of the Father. That one I'm pretty sure.
It is a really good episode.
Yeah, it's an excellent episode. Is this one?
She is so good. I forget her name, but
Susie Plaxton.
Susie Plaxton. She is amazing.
Yeah, she's played a couple of characters in Star Trek.
Yeah,
she has. But I'd forgotten how awesome Kayla was. Like, Kayla is absolutely brilliant character.
And it's a shame she was killed off.
It is.
Basically 2 episodes.
And this really shows how weird and inextricable love is. because why the fuck is like? I mean, Worf is a dick to her. He's kind of
Yeah.
a real Klingon nerd. He like talks about Klingon law, but like Klingons don't like they you know they obey the law, but it's more about the battle and the honor and everything. But he gets so bogged down in like rites of passage and what you know. Why she would go for him just seems so. But yeah, but that's
probably because he was raised outside of the Klingons as well, because he was raised on Earth. So
maybe, yeah.
I think that's what it. I think that's what it is. That he's different to normal Klingons, and she's different to normal Klingons, and she sort of he's different in his own unique way.
No, that's
yeah.
I like it.
Yeah. And this is a trope that TNG uses a lot, which I always like. We know this is going to be a Worf episode immediately because we start with a poker game and Worf wins. So it's like, right, this is a Worf episode, clearly, because usually Riker wins.
Yeah.
But
and he's got a nickname of the Iceman in poker because no one can beat him. Allegedly, according to this episode,
which they've always called him.
Yeah, but that doesn't sort of pan out throughout the entire series, does it? That he always
wins
and unbeatable.
And they've always called Worf the Iceman, and they will always call him it after the. It's like Action Saru, you know.
Yes.
The ice. In fact, that should be a spin-off. The Iceman and Action Saru. They should have their own series.
Yeah, because it's like I mean, I love this as an entry into the episode. It's nice. Like, I really wish kind of like Discovery, especially, I wish had done more kind of like cold opens, which are really nothing to do with the rest of the episode. Like at the end of it, the cold open, you get an into the episode, but most of it is just standalone. It's really fun. It's character development, which we sorely missed in Discovery. I think we even referenced the poker game several times. But yeah, it's when they're playing poker, and it's like Worf, Data, and the others kind of chip in with kind of some conversation about the sort of poker game. But it's whenever Pulaski or Riker are saying anything, they put in a bit of poker jingo, which when they're all doing it, it sort of like blends in. When it's two of them, you just think they would be the most annoying ones to play poker with. It's like, time to draw the stallion up. It's like, well, what the fuck does that mean? Just like just deal the cards for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
They'd be the annoying ones.
Like there's the bit where Geordie does make a joke of it where he says, "Oh, are you writing this down?" But it's like you clearly don't want to play 5-card stud because that is the most boring version of poker. It's just 5 cards. You either stick with them or change a few of them, and that's it. There's nothing else to it. Except when Data gets involved. Okay, so juices are wild unless you draw them. It's like when Kirk explains the rules of that Fizbin game, and he's just making it up. Like 6s always win, except on a Tuesday. And it's like, you know what? Just play a different game, lads. You clearly, if Data has to make up this many rules to make it interesting, then,
yeah, you've got your android who's trying to make it interesting because he's bored.
Yeah. And
like,
see, that's why
human conversations are slow, but for fuck's sake, I mean, geez, I can compute any normal conversation of yours within 3 seconds. This is torture.
That's why when we get to All Good Things, Picard is just having none of it at the end. He just comes in, nothing wild. Here we go, 5-card stud, nothing wild. I've heard about this bullshit that you lot do with your juices and your names and your... No.
Honestly, I asked Q to set up this whole thing as an excuse why I'd be entering the poker game. Now it's really I just avoided it because of all that bullshit.
Yeah, that's it. It's now to do with him not feeling like he can be close to the crew or anything. It's like, no, I've heard all these cobblers that they do when they're playing, and it's just Picard's probably got his own. Picard's got his own game night that he goes to. He's like, I'm a D&D man myself.
I mean, having said that, it is so nice in these episodes, in both of them pretty much, but especially in the first one, to have early, surly Picard is really good fun. Like, it's kind of really fun to watch. I'm glad both Patrick Stewart and Picard went on this wonderful journey, both together in kind of step, really, the character and the human. And yeah, but to be at the beginning where he's just getting shitty with Worf, basically, it's just so much fun.
Yeah,
I mean, I said nothing, Captain. All right.
This is and it runs between these two episodes. Worf just don't want anything to do with Kayla. Like in this one, it's like, oh no, I don't think I should accompany him. Do you have any professional reasons, Mr. Worf? And no, I withdraw my request. And then in Reunion, it's like, no, my dishonor will. It's like you just don't want to do your job, Worf. You know.
Whereas like later series, you feel like Picard would have been like, sit down, look. I understand your problems with this. However, this mission needs to, like, he'd have couched it a bit. Beginning, it's just like, fucking do your job, bitch.
Yeah.
It's like,
yeah.
And I think this is what gained, even though Worf respects him all the way through, I think this is where he gets his respect for Picard from, because he is just like that. It's like, do this. This is your job. You're bullshitting here. You're right. I'm a Klingon. I do my duty.
Well, let's be honest. He hasn't been chief of security for 2 years nearly at this point, though.
That's true.
He's still sort of only a year into it, and he's still proving himself to Picard. Are you the right man that I've met? Like, Tasha was my choice when I came on board for my chief of security. Are you actually the right man for the job that I've put in here?
Yeah, you just sort of hung around and did something ill-defined in the first season. In fact, I don't even really know what you do, Worf.
Yeah,
I was deputy.
You jumped over me banister on bridge a couple of times.
Yeah. So yeah, the setup of the episode is there's a frozen Klingon ship, or a Klingon ship where the crew are frozen, who are going to awaken. They think the war is still on. And so we're sending Kayla as an emissary to kind of mediate it. And there is the totally unnecessary for the plot, but we'll have them send her in a probe that they'll launch through space. Just cool for no reason.
Well, it was for speed. It was so she could get there in time, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, but I'm saying... So there's no narrative reason, really, other than it's cool and it makes the episode cooler.
Well, it was the only thing that they had fast enough for her to get there in time, according to the episode. But
yeah, but that's what I'm saying. They didn't have to write it so that they could have just met. They could have just met another ship and transferred her. But it's like, no, we're going to do something really badass to get her into the show.
I think it also shows though that she's as hard as nails, and like
it does.
She comes across that she's got all this humor and all that you see, but it's also saying her up that. No, she's pretty hard. She will do extreme things. She has no problem doing extreme things. So, like, when she starts going, no, we've just got to go kill them straight away. No option, kill them.
I mean,
you can believe it. But that's why I think you can believe that she thinks this is normal from coming in the torpedo.
Well, I was going to say, I think this is a very it seems like slow pace compared to modern TV, but sometimes that can be like it can be boring. I think it's slow pace but interesting. I kind of really enjoyed this. Like, and it also does a lot in a short period of time. So it does show she's badass. It shows about like it's showing kids like about science. Like, so if you're this far away. And the Enterprise here, like as opposed to one thing going to the other, two things can meet in the middle. And like if you're in extreme circumstances, what can you do? How can you be resourceful? Like they could calculate what nine. You know, there's stuff you could do with kids around this. There's I like the fact that they're even working out as they go, so they're showing deduction as well. So it's like we're in it. There's a why the hell is there a fuck shit? She's in there. If you get rid of the life support, so they talk about the mechanisms, which would need.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
I think this actually says a lot. Like it's because we're watching it to review it. I kind of really noticed all the stuff they get into this. Slow.
And it does add to the immediacy of it. Like this is an emergency, so we have to do this.
Yeah.
So
the only thing that, arguing against myself, the only thing that's wrong with her. Constantly going, no, we've got to destroy them straight away. Why have you sent the Klingon a Klingon to here if all you're going to do is destroy them?
Yeah,
you can have the Enterprise yeah, you've got this ship, just go there and vote on it as soon as you see it.
Yeah, it's very much like one of them meetings that could have been an email. Like, if all K-Lad's going to do is turn up and say, let's kill them,
Yeah.
you could have just sent a thing through saying, we've consulted with the ambassador and she says kill them.
Yeah.
Well, they did actually, no, in their defense, they did send an email, but she had 20 tablets in front of her and she didn't see the right one.
Fair enough. There's a nice moment where she chats with Troy, and you know, we've talked a lot about Troy, how Troy was so underdeveloped, but having the fact that you have another someone who's like made up of two different species talking to Troy and talking to her about her heritage, it's not a moment you would get often in TNG where it's like, oh, there's something that's unique about Troy that's not connected to a job as the counselor, and we're drawing a link between these two characters. It's just a nice little character beat and showing, no, we haven't forgot that Deanna exists as a character and has other facets to her.
But we will forget again by next episode.
Oh, well, exactly. That's what I'm going to say. It's not a lot, but it's there, so it's worth talking about.
You see, I found that interesting because, like, and you're right. I was thinking, on the other hand, with the counselor kind of side of it, she basically says it's like, yeah, but getting angry isn't bad. She doesn't really go very deep as a cat. Like, I would more go for, like, you know, it's like, well, what are sides of Klingon culture which you do? Like, obviously they just didn't want the episode to go in this direction, but it's like, what are parts of Klingon culture? Like, you've just explored their anger and their kind of warrior. Like, there's loads of sides to Klingons. What about the other sides? And you could have brought in a caring, nurturing nature, which would have fed into the episode versus the way
it would.
You know, I think they could have tied this in a bit more thematically. But yeah, no, it's you're right about them both being half human was interesting.
Yeah, it's brief, but it's there, and it's interesting, and it's unusual.
Yeah,
so,
it's a bit more, and it is something that has been established previously, but it's unusual that we actually see it brought up about Marina because, like, Betazoids look human anyway, so unless she says anything, there's no difference anyway to what we see. Yeah,
I mean, I basically, until I watched this episode back, I kind of forgot that because I never mentioned that Alexander's half, like, a quarter human. Like, he's got human.
True.
Yeah.
Well, that's because of Worf's awesome parenting, but we'll get there. So, despite talking about anger and whatnot, Kayla does have a paddy, and she storms off to the holodeck, finds Worf's program. Worf's program is awesome. Like, I'm going to make a training program where I fight. What shall I fight? Monsters. Proper monsters. So, yeah, well done, Worf, for designing this. Could have been really boring. Could have just been like that judo guy that Tasha Yar fights. You know, when they're like, oh, this is how we train. Worf's like, no, I want this guy.
I don't know what the actual definition of calisthenics is.
Fighting monsters.
But you know what? I don't know what the actual real definition of calisthenics is.
It's like gymnastics, isn't
it? Yeah, I thought it was.
It's just like aerobic exercise, I think.
I thought it was something which it involves working the muscles. Like, it, so there's, I think, it can incorporate a few things. I mean, the only thing I would add to Skull Guy, definitely really cool.
Yeah.
Second guy, I think was like, in the eyes of our minds, like, I thought the costume was very pretty, like, you know, on the second one. I feel like the Skull Guy got the main costume.
Yes, he did.
And you're right. Like, I think in what we're meant to be seeing, it's really good. But also the fight, I thought, like, some of the fighting moves, I'm like, okay, like, this is like, I'm glad they got better at showing.
Yeah, and they've also not invented the Batleth yet, because they end up fighting. I mean, we'll get it in the next episode, but
right. Calisthenics.
I'll go on.
Is a form of strength training that utilizes an individual's body weight or resistance to perform multi-joint compound movements with little or no equipment.
Well, that is absolutely not what this is.
Well, using equipment.
He's not using his body weight. He's got a sword, so he is using equipment.
Now, I wonder if it's because he's with the Federation. if he's had to call it calisthenics, so it flies under the radar of what he's actually doing, and like people say calisthenics.
Like when you used to,
because if you notice, every time someone comes across his program, they sort of go calisthenics, sort of like.
Yeah, good point.
I didn't even notice them saying calisthenics in this one, because I remember because he says exercise.
Yeah, I'm sure she does.
Yeah, no, I'm sure she does. I didn't catch it. I remember saying exercise, which sounded sounded weird to me when you actually then see the program. It's like, well, I would call this a combat training thing. Not, I mean, it is exercise, but it's not like it's primary thing probably.
Like I do wonder if it's because he's like Klingon and he wants to go around have this training program where he can kill stuff, and to get his anger out, he's using bladed weapons and blunt trauma, trauma and all that.
Call it calisthenics.
I'll call it calisthenics, so no one actually checks what I'm doing.
Like when you used to, you'd have your dirty films taped off telly and you'd write something else on label, like, right, what are my parents not likely to watch? Doctor Who. I'll write that on it.
Songs of Praise.
Yeah, there we go.
I was so annoyed when Mum put on an episode of Doctor Who for me as a surprise. I'm like, not that tape.
Yeah, not that one. Yes, so they're on the holodeck and they do a sex, which means Worf immediately goes, right, we're married. Let me start doing the marriage ritual.
Do you know what? No, but before we even get there, do you know my first thought was? This means that in the early episode where they're seeing the visions where no one has gone before.
Yeah.
And they've seen vision. And he sees the Klingon woman and this is what Klingons think is this is sex. And then he goes like about actually it might be a different episode, this other bit, but he goes like the women hurl heavy objects while the man reads.
Oh yeah.
And this just shows he was fucking with them, and he did it really. Like, I mean, I know. Okay, when they wrote that episode, they didn't know that they were going to then evolve like this, and it's a throwaway sort of line, but it's like it does mean that he did a deadpan joke on them even back then.
Yeah, good point.
I like the idea that he was just messing with them all this time about what Klingon sex is.
Yeah, I like that. And it is, I mean, it's funny because he starts doing the ritual and then she's like, I will not be your wife. And like, tough shit, you already are, love. You should have thought of that.
Because he was saying basically, as soon as we have sex, we're married.
That's it. Too late. And the fact that he actually seems to believe it, like this makes sense to him. He's just like, yep, I'm sorry, you already are. What's your problem?
Yeah.
Too late. Too late.
I mean, between this and there's also some stuff with Garen when we get to the next episode, I think it does kind of like in a really interesting way show how like in this episode, we're still early doors discovering what Klingons are in this time period and what kind of the rules are, and all the lore comes together really ready for Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
And same with Garen. It's like there's a few things he does here which, sure, it's a brand new character. You can't expect them to know the character even as well as they'll get to know them. But there's a few ways he acts where I'm going like, oh, if there's later Garen, he would.
Yeah, definitely.
Like so it's kind of really interesting.
Yeah. And
I think it does establish though that Worf is really on about how he does.
Yes, it does.
How he looks at, right, this is what Klingon doctrine says, and that's what I follow. And it's a bit like supposedly we live in a Christian country, but do any of us actually identify as being Christian or anything?
Well, I don't personally, but some people do.
I don't know, but my point is that we live in a country that supposedly is Christian, and if you followed the book of it, you'd be very, very different. And Worf is that extreme of I follow every letter of the doctrine, where we're sort of like, no, we live in a Christian country, but we don't believe. I don't personally believe in God. I don't follow anything religious or anything.
On occasion, I have coveted my neighbour's ox.
I mean, who hasn't? I mean, I'm just talking about your neighbour's ox. That's a fine.
No, but
war.
You know the point I'm trying to make with it.
What I was going to say, which is the same point, is that it's like probably one monastery on the Klingon homeworld actually observes this, but Worf is so like you say, he's so like by the letter. It's like no Klingons always do this. Like no actual Klingon does that apart from these three weirdos.
And I think
like we do discover a lot more of this later in DS9, and Jad Sears brings it out with Worf, and it's sort of like, no, you Klingons aren't like you. Klingons have a sense of humor.
And I think we've discussed it before, and I think we can infer that the reason for it is that Worf wasn't raised around Klingons. So what he's done, he's read books about it and learned about it from almost a purely theoretical way, and he's gone, I am going to follow that because it's my culture. And then he actually meets Klingons. It's like, oh, they're actually not really into this shit as much as I thought they would be.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I'm guessing that he kind of like like you say, study it from a child. I'm guessing along the way he did meet Klingons who didn't meet up with his ideal, but he was so entrenched, and he probably found some people who believed what he believes. It's like it actually speaks quite a lot about confirmation bias and how we process news from the internet now in a way they couldn't have predicted then. It actually, it's the reality versus, I think it's like this, so I'll find something which backs it up, and it is like that. And it's just not.
Yeah, and it's one of those where if he meets a Klingon who isn't doing it, he will think, oh, well, that must be a dishonorable Klingon. The real honorable Klingons are the ones who do this stuff I've got in my head.
And this is why it goes all the way up with Worf, that he thinks the entire High Council is dishonorable. He thinks the Chancellor is dishonorable. He thinks everybody that don't meet his ideal.
I mean, a lot of them are, but
a lot of them are. But we also see a lot of the Klingon culture through all sides, which are biased.
Yeah, true. And the actual plot wraps up pretty quickly once we get there. The Klingons do wake up and attack. And Worf does come up with a good plan. We'll pretend to be Klingons who are in command of the Federation ship, and we'll talk them down. Yeah. And I love the bit where he goes like, "You fool! Did it not occur to you the war would be over by now?"
The thing is, though, how did they know it was a Federation ship?
Because it's got the circle, it's got the saucer and the nacelle.
And also, even though the call signals and everything would be different, identifiers would be different, there's probably some commonality that like NCC they'll see on the front. There's they
could maybe done a scanner check and have detected the rocks that make up the computers. So they know
and it's called Enterprise.
It's probably in their hailing, they probably identify to ships all around.
Only the humans would have a ship called Enterprise.
Well, I mean, also it just shows what I said when we were covering the other Klingon episodes. You've still got that kind of like, I never realized when watching these back previously how much these hark back to the original Klingons, which were all traditionally Shakespearean actors. Yeah. So like, these guys have sort of, they've gone back, watched those, and there's a lot of that in here still. Whereas by the time you get to Deep Space Nine, that's kind of, there are still some wonderful character actors who do give those performances, but it's not all every episode.
Realistically,
by the time you get to DS9, you're not bringing in just one or two Klingons.
No.
Occasionally, you've got lots of Klingons all the time.
And realistically, this is only like the third modern Klingon episode. We had Heart of Glory season 1, A Matter of Honor earlier in season 2, and then this. This is it. And Ronald D. Moore doesn't come on as a writer until the middle of season 3, and it was him that really fleshed out the Klingons. So we wrap up then with Kayla says, well, I was tempted to take the oath. And Worf's like, what do you mean tempted? You did fucking take the oath. I told you. You were already married.
You took both my tips.
Yeah. But anyway, and Worf says, I will not be complete without you. And that just shows that once you are in Worf's family, he will never abandon you. He will never let you go. He will never send you away. Which brings us on to Reunion.
It's a nice little segue.
Actually,
Yeah.
This, if you think about it, also, like the episodes are a year and a few episodes either sides apart. So we'll say generously a year and a half apart.
Mm-hmm.
And like that's probably the most brief between times when he's seen Alexander ever for a start. And
Yeah,
for a
most
second,
likely.
And I know this is much commented on by a lot of people. It's not exactly original thought, but it's how close these episodes are together. As I say, it's a year and change if you're being generous. Like maybe, like we'll say a year and a half.
Yeah.
So Alexander, even if you say Klingon gestation period is a month, like, you know, or a couple of months.
Oh,
he's
no,
like a year old here.
We find out it's actually 10 months, isn't it? Because when B'Elanna gets pregnant, the doctor says a usual Klingon term is, I think so I remember working it out on my fingers, and it's 4 weeks longer than the human one. So I think it's give or take 10 months.
So that'd be 10 months.
Yeah, so at most he can be about 9 months old. Like again, that's really, I think, being generous with the age as well. I love the fact that Alexander's aging's never made any sense. They never in any other episode suggest that Klingons age quicker.
No.
Like they've shown Klingon children before in other episodes.
It's that you've got that constraint, haven't you? That they want to bring Worf's son in to sort of like for Kayla and all that, how they're rounding up this story. And you've got like the other thing of going, right, we can't have a bloody 1-year-old.
Yeah.
As good, and there needs to be an age where they can talk to her.
Yeah, that's it. A baby.
They've got to do some television-y stuff and go, it is what it is. And let's also be honest, like this had been 1991, this came out.
Yes, I want to say yes. Let's go with yes.
And you wouldn't have the same reruns of Next Gen going on. Like,
no, you wouldn't.
Where we'd watch it back, and I'm not sure where we'd be with the videotapes if we'd be having a regular videotape.
Oh, yeah. We were having videotapes.
They probably did in the US, but
no, they had them over here because.
But it's that how you watch things back. Like we watch things back a lot differently now.
Yeah, but
I think it's more noticeable when there's been 2 years.
Yeah, I suppose you'd go, I vaguely remember Kayla. How long ago was that? Oh, it must have been about 6 years ago looking at that lad.
I
would say though is they still had serialization at this time. They still had repeat. They like other shows didn't have this. Like very often there was a couple of examples, but they were always seen as like I know they were a bit more fluid with the rules back then, but it's like, and you're in sci-fi as well. There's so many reasons why you could have an excuse why he's older or whatever. You know,
we're having a bit of fun with it, but it is silly. It's far too old.
There's probably some fan fiction that Kayla and Alexander fell through some sort of airtime wormhole. Just shortly after his birth.
Yeah, it was,
and they had adventures off doing stuff for 5-6 years, but then when they reappeared, it was like
it was close to a gravity well where the gravity made time. Yeah.
I mean,
let's be honest, there's all sorts of excuses they could use that we've seen in Star Trek for how he's been off.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, one of like a kind of similar thing because another thing they used to do sort of back in this time was like sometimes a character would just disappear. One of my favorite ones was Happy Days. There was a brother to Joni and Richie called Chuck who goes upstairs at the end of I think it's the first series and then never comes down again. And people came up with this like dark storyline that he died in Vietnam and Tom Boswell, dad coming out, he says, right, we will never speak of him again. We will never refer to him. No, like, once did it. And like, he shouted like them down and like, we will not name him. He is no longer with us.
Yeah, it's like, I think it's the Webster family in Coronation Street. And there was a running joke where it always, girls, go to your room. And they eventually started writing it in just as a joke, but it was every time they got sent to the room and they came back down, they aged about 5 years. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yes, K'Ehleyr returns. We get the Voyager class attack cruiser, which I think this is the first time we see one.
I've got a funny feeling it may be the first time. I'd have to check if it's the first.
Yeah, I'm not 100%, but
I think
I have a sneaky feeling. And I love the design. It's an awesome ship.
Yes.
And K'Ehleyr arrives. She brings Alexander. Obviously, she doesn't care about Worf's dishonor. Worf is banging on about, oh, my dishonor, I can't go see her. Oh, are you upset about my dishonor? She's like, don't be stupid, I don't care about your dishonor.
But then, this is the point at which I'm going, it's like, for fuck, why are you fucking this guy? Like, I know they're not really much, but it's like, why are you so kind of like taken with this guy? He's just, every time you say anything, he's just.
And also, I think season 4 Worf is much better written than season 2 Worf. He's still miles away from DS9 Worf. But yeah. And then she does this thing where she's like, do you have anything to ask me? Like, must I ask the question? You must ask the question. But he never does. And so that don't work, K'Ehleyr. She's got this thing, I'm going to make him ask if he's the dad. But Worf doesn't ask if he's the dad. And then when he walks off, she says something like, how do you feel about being his father or something? So basically, yeah, that don't work, K'Ehleyr. I expect better. She's usually sassier.
Yeah.
Only because it ties in. I know it's from the end of the episode, but I kind of found that quite funny because you noticed that bit, which I didn't really pick up on. And at the end of the episode, all I could think of was when Alexander goes like, are you my dad? I was thinking,
yeah.
for fuck's sake, I think I see why Worf doesn't want you around. Fucking obviously, what do you think this shit was all about? Like, so funny enough, Worf worked it out before he did. Even
now, I know we're going to have words about Worf and his parenting style, but is Alexander used to it? Because the second they get on the Enterprise, K'Eleyr's like, "What? They've got a school here, right? See you later, Alexander. Put him in the Federation crash."
And also, that bit at the end means that when Worf comes up and gives Alexander shit for the way he's behaving, like if I was Alexander, is like, "Who the fuck are you?" Like, you know,
who are you?
If he doesn't know he's his dad, because when that scene's happening, I forgot that he doesn't know he's his dad at that stage. Because that's insane.
And also,
like that who doesn't know they're related to you or anything to you.
Yeah, like also K'Ehleyr makes Worf pick him up from school, which apparently he's enrolled in school now. But anyway, so she ditches him at school as soon as she gets there. She makes Worf pick him up. Where's his stranger danger? He's literally only met this lad for 2 seconds. And Worf's obviously bollocking him about not having enough honour on the way back from the school. Well, that's going to be a good first impression, K'Ehleyr, of his dad. Like, this big dickhead came and picked me up from this school that I never wanted to go to. Which, by the way, my mum turned up and went, "Oh, here's my son. You're looking after him. By the way, he don't like other kids. Right, Worf, we're off. And you can go pick him up because I don't want to bollock him from it." And then Worf's walking him back. "Oh, you have no honour." Blah, blah. I almost feel sorry for Alexander if he wants such a little peckhead.
I actually find this confusing because where is he being brought up for however long the duration is since he was birthed? And I'm going to assume that it's been 5 years and there's been wormholes involved.
Yeah.
Well, K'Eleyr's wormhole was involved. Ayo!
But where is he being brought up if he's not being brought up on Earth? Because K'Ehleyr has never had him in a school before.
No, true.
So the Klingons not have any form of education for the kids. They do not do anything with them.
They just stick them in a calisthenics program for the first 4 years.
I think where I'm going with this is, if he's being brought up around Klingons, why has he no idea of what honor is and all that?
Yeah.
And how Klingons are.
And if he's been brought up around humans, why hasn't he had more contact with them? Yeah, good point. Where has Alexander been brought up?
Which possibly explains my wormhole theory of the film through a time distortion, and they were off for umpteen years, and they've arrived back, and there's not as long gone as they've had.
You know, I know you're kind of fucking around with that, but I've seen crazier YouTube theories from people. It's like, there was one guy it reminds me of when they had David Tennant at the end of him being Doctor Who the first time round. He kind of like goes back and sees Rose just before they meet, and some guy came up with, because he didn't like the fact that Rose then doesn't recognize him, what some random guy stumbling around. Like when you meet him next time is when he makes a huge impression on you. When you see some drunk guy stumbling, you might not remember him a year later or whatever, or later on in the year.
Especially on New Year's Eve. I've met people on New Year's Eve that I would never remember again in my life.
And this guy was like, oh, it's clearly an alternate universe. And people have said that's an insane theory. I don't think so. It's like, yeah, it is, dude. Like, you're really grasping. She forgot. I don't know what to tell you. It's obvious what they intended.
It's so Picard gets asked to become the arbiter of succession because Kempek reveals that someone's been poisoning him, and he says,
I like this with Kempek because Kempek has realised he's being poisoned, and he's realised that they're poisoning him through the wine.
Yeah.
And he's still drinking the wine, and he's realised that it's too late. And I like my wine, so I'm not going to stop drinking.
It's one of them where it's like, well, it's not going to do any harm now. Yeah. So
I also think by that stage, because he's aware and they're doing investigation, I think the poison's already done their job. Why risk putting it in there at that stage? So, like, from both point of views, it's like, if it is poison, fuck it. I mean, and if it is, we've got evidence. If it's not, great, more wine. You know, it's like it's win-win for him. But yeah, I just love the fact that I bet Picard was salivating over, like, he's got a whole new, like, he's already done it previously, kind of got a bit involved with Klingon lore, but now he gets to really go nuts deep on a lore that he doesn't know that much about. He gets to do the long version of the ceremony.
That's good.
It for Worf. He just loves the homework, let's face it. Like, he's the original, like they talked about in that Lower Decks episode about Archer being the nerd. It's like, I think we know Picard was the OG study nerd.
Yeah, definitely. He loves the pronunciation of the words, doesn't he? Like, you know, it's called the Jar Juk, and he's like, yeah, we're gonna do the Jar Juk. Yeah, you know, really.
And he's like, oh,
absolutely loves it.
Oh no, do I have to do more reading of the long version? Oh well, it's like sending Scotty off to read technical manuals. It's like, it's not punishment.
But I do really like the way Kempek sets it up. So, okay, we know someone's poisoned me. It is one of two suspects. And this is how he says it to Picard. He goes, you must work out which one it was. Gowron or Duras? Like, I think I know who it is.
And plus, the second you mentioned Duras is like, yeah, obviously. Well, no,
it's Duras.
Clearly, it's Duras.
Like, to be fair, this is only the second time that we've had Duras involved in anything.
Yeah, but it's Duras.
But we're now used to it being Duras, who's always.
But that's how Kempek says it.
We got of him is him being. So it's like, unless you're going to do a twist on it, you know.
Duras.
But I like this.
Pointy
nasty big pointy teeth.
Although it's quite funny because, like, you've got Duras, you know, like said in that way and everything. Then when the two of them come on, Duras is the nerdy looking one basically, and then you've got crazy-eyed Gowron, the first time I've ever seen Robert Wright.
They're brilliant, aren't they?
I mean, when he first come on, we must, like, I can't remember what my feeling was first time I was watching this episode. Probably I didn't think about that much, but like, if I'd seen those two guys, well, he's clearly the bad guy. The guy with the crazy eyes, yeah, probably he's the guy who did it.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't stereotype people with big eyes and stuff. Like, I know we've evolved past that, but at the time, certainly, like,
no, but they are special crazy Gowron eyes. Like,
I mean, can you imagine? This was probably one episode. Like, maybe they were thinking, oh well, if we continue the story, we might bring that guy back. But it's like, the second Robert O'Reilly's on screen with those eyes, it's like, well, we'll bring that guy back.
He
like,
got a very good pension out of this. Not least, we saw him in Blackpool at a convention this last year. So
was he actually credited at all in any of the seasons, or did he not reach enough episodes in any?
Oh, he was never. He was never a regular cast member. But I think by the time we get to DS9, I think he got and Robert O'Reilly as Gowron. I think he got that.
Yeah, he was certainly. I never think he was regular enough for that, but like in Next Generation, especially.
I know he got he got a lot of episodes.
It did.
Oh yeah, he was much love reoccurring. Certainly, like he was a beloved.
Like let's be honest, it's probably set him up for life. Like if Manu was on 80k a year
from Voyager,
Voyager royalties.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's what he told us at Sci-Fi.
That's what Manu Intereme claimed, and he's probably not wrong, but
it's probably not far off.
Yeah,
that he was set
I've still got his CV that he were handing out, trying to get bookings.
Mind you, I'm telling you, look, if anyone was going to earn those big paychecks, I'm glad it was such a nice guy as him. Seems like a tough.
Yeah, absolutely.
Can't see anything wrong with him.
So they do actually try and give us a little bit of doubt as to whether it might be Gowron, because they say, oh, well, he's a bit of an outsider, and they have a bit where he tries to bribe Kayla. So they are at least paying lip service to this being a bit of a mystery, but we know it's going to be Duras.
Yeah, and actually, because we're onto the Gowron very quickly, if I could just, like, with what I was saying earlier, it is some of his decisions as well. It's like, he acts pretty dishonorably there, which isn't like Gowron. He kind of like when Duras basically, when they're saying about the long rite of succession and Duras kicks off, Gowron later would have gone with it just to piss Duras off.
Yeah.
There's so much more we get out of his character later. It's kind of interesting to see this earlier version before they fleshed it out. Sorry, yeah, over to you, mate.
No, I was off to say, like, I can't even remember what I was off to say. To be fair, now I've lost it. My train of thought has gone.
But we do get the Batleth, which is awesome, and like that makes Klingon fighting a lot cooler going forward.
Is this the first time we see the Batleth?
I believe it is. Yeah, I think this is the first time. So it'd be the first time for the Voyager class, and the first time for the Batleth, and annoyingly the first time for Alexander. 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
my pile of shame is too high and double layered. I can't tell, but I'm quite sure I've got a Voyager class in there somewhere.
I think you have, yeah. I love...
and Worf's pile of shame is just pictures of Alexander stacked up.
I love when Duras sort of confronts Kayla and just how she's having absolutely none of it and has absolutely no fear of him whatsoever, like when he comes into a room and he's, throwing it around. You've been looking at this, you've been doing that. And she's such a great character because she just absolutely stands up to him. I mean, ultimately it doesn't work out well for her, but...
I wonder if it was ever regretted in the writing rooms that they killed her off in this episode, because she's such a great character.
Yeah,
she would have been great to bring back.
Yes, she would.
Yeah. You could have had in some of the few how much they really went into the Klingons.
Yeah.
More later in TNG, but especially in DS9, having Kayla would have been.
And you could have.
Awesome.
You could have also had her and Worf as like star-crossed lovers. Like it could be because of the dishonor they can't be together. So even though they both want to be, you could have kept that thread running.
And then when the family's reinstated, she's then off on something else. Like you basically have them sort of like what Frasier and Lilith became in Frasier after Cheers. Like they kind of always guest appeared. There was always that kind of like love between them, but it just never quite gelled
Yeah.
and came together. That would have been really, and because she's a guest star, it doesn't get as worn out like as a regular character. When you've got the will they won't they, that can get really tired. So that would have been really interesting.
We definitely could have had more Kayla and not complained, but
we would have enjoyed more Kayla.
And it also, it is a trope, like they call it fridging, don't they? Where you kill a female character solely to motivate revenge in a male character, and I'm not saying in and of itself there's nothing wrong with it as a story beat, but it's the fact that it's done so often that it became a trope and it's up for criticism. So it's not a criticism of this episode, but it's
just before we miss Rose, hey Retrek, great show. Hope to catch you next week. Until then, night, sweet dreams. And love to you all and to you, Rose.
I think also Rose's last message said that it's her birthday next week.
Where?
Hey.
So let us know when your birthday is, and if we missed it.
On 24th, which is also
Which is section 31, yeah?
Season 1, 5th anniversary.
Oh, well, that's a nice birthday present.
That is a nice birthday. Both them on it.
And because it's rights free, we can sing happy birthday. You may not want us to. Our voices might not be good, but we can do it.
Speak for yourself. I've got an awesome
We will do that.
Okay. Sorry. My voice is bad. Elliot's is awful.
We will do that next week. So Worf finds Kayla dead. And this is pretty graphic, it's not, Saw or anything, but for a family show, I think this is pretty brutal. We've got a dead body covered in blood. We've got a kid who has to look at it. I think this is pretty dark for where TNG was pitching itself, I think.
TNG was definitely pitched as it went out at 6 o'clock on B2 on the Tuesday.
Wednesday.
I can't remember which. Okay, but the point is, it was a tea time show. It was aimed at a younger audience.
And it was. I mean, it was a lovely moment though when they, when Kayla put Alexander's hand in Worf, no matter what we might say about their dynamic and Alexander's character, beautiful moment. And I do love the fact, the only thing I didn't like, you guys were saying about you could have kept Kayla alive. If Kayla was going to get killed, I almost want it to be not like I would prefer it to be one of his henchmen, because they're tougher. He's a pussy basically. To be killed by him is almost the ultimate dishonor. And it does lead Worf to then regain her honor by killing Duras.
His honor ultimately,
But it's even then, it's I love the bullshit excuses that Duras starts coming up with. It's but if you do this, no one will be alive to give you your honor back. It's that wasn't part of the deal anyway. It's
shut up, Duras.
It was really kind of cool that Picard does bring up. It's it's sort of like answering the question that people are going to be asking at home. He brings up, well, can we reclaim your name now? It's well, not yet, because there's a lot of people who would be embarrassed by that, but we're looking at someday.
Maybe one day, maybe the season finale.
I'm working my way through the list bit by bit. I will find a reason to take them all out that's legitimate.
Let's see how we stand when we get to the end of the season. We might need a cliffhanger.
I'm going to flip a coin as to whether to take out Kern, because he was there.
And it's good that in Kayla's dying breath, she manages to solve the mystery. Worf goes, "Was it Gowron?" And she goes, "No, it was Duras." Nasty, bitey teeth. And so then Worf just goes and kills him, and I love because he can, and I love the fact that the discipline for this is
don't do that every game.
A reprimand will appear on your record.
killed
a
the dude.
reprimand. So presumably, whoever next looked. So when Cisco was looking at transferring Worf, he's going through his file. Commendation for original thinking, promoted to lieutenant commander. Oh, there's a note here. Killed a bloke in cold blood. Like, what a weird note to have on your file.
But think about it. We're just at the point then where Cisco's starting to go into his war footing himself.
True.
Do you think he saw that and goes like,
maybe he's the man for the job?
We found our man. Just ignore this line. That's just for me. Why is it redacted though? Says Kira. It's like never mind. Yeah, actually, Kira, you can know. Odo, fuck off.
And it's the fact that it just case closed after that. Like, okay, you were observing Klingon culture. You meant to follow Starfleet rules, even when your culture says different.
Can we also throw in?
You a reprimand.
All you've done because Picard says, "Oh, you know," he goes, "Do you wish to resign?" No. Well, I'm glad you're not throwing away a promising career. It was like, what, killing someone wasn't your deal breaker? It was like, if you wanted to resign, throwing away his career.
I do like how when they're going to bring him back, you've got Riker and Data going over, and Riker's going, "We're bringing him back, whatever we have to do, bringing him back." And it takes them so long. Worf, like, I'm not being funny, but we know how fast transporter technology is to go from one place to another. But we're taking him back. We're going to bring him back, whatever. Set phases to maximum stun. Let's walk down the corridor. Let's walk down this corridor. We've got to give him time to kill him with the battler and have him.
And then when we get in the room, we'll just go, Worf, no. We did it. We did his best, Captain.
Yeah, we tried.
Also, you've got to throw in there that Data at this point in Next Generation is questioning, like he doesn't understand anything human, but like he's always questioning any emotional thing. But straight away he's like, yeah, Worf won't come quietly. Even if he gets this, you know, it's such a big emotional thing. Even it's like it can't escape Data's notice.
But I just want to see this on like Captain when like Picard's got to put the note on Worf's record.
Yeah, the reprimand. Yeah,
the reprimand. So he's got to do his questioning of his officers. So number one, what happened when you got there? Well, we had our phases set on maximum stun so we could stop him doing anything. Yeah, well done, number one. And what happened? Well, we got there. Yeah. Did he get there before he killed him? Yeah. So what did he do? Well, I went, no, Worf, don't. What? You didn't think of firing your phaser? Well, it was too much from his bitey.
Yeah. Oh.
Also, though, there's probably a bit of like, you know, it's like one of those plausible deniability things. Like, well, I shouted, no, I couldn't possibly stop him. It's like, Worf, you're right, dude. Like, yeah, Worf gave him a little okay. So, like, you don't, it's off camera, but he's just giving him a little okay. You know, it's all a deal between them.
So it's like that thing that they do in South Park, isn't it, where they're taking the piss out of in America.
Oh no, it's coming right for us.
Right for us.
Shoot it, Ned.
We're allowed to do it if we're thinning out the numbers. Quick, thin out the number.
Yeah. It's got a different one every time. Could I also, just because I forgot when we were talking about the other episode, just very quick, Diedrich Beta, who went on to be Batman the Brave and the Bold. He was in loads of comedies in the 90s, in a few Kevin Smith films. He was a bridge officer in the first episode.
There we go.
Sorry, I completely forgot before. I just want to say it when I remembered. I love it when, you know, like you've got Terry Hatcher in one of the early ones. It's lovely when they just go past the camera, basically.
Was he the bridge officer that randomly replaced Wesley? Because presumably Will Wheaton was doing something else when that episode was filmed.
I think so. I mean, it was like, I was in a different position. I think he was stood at the top of the
just really
wooden thing at the top.
Yeah. It's just really weird that Wesley just isn't in that episode and there's just no explanation whatsoever for it. But anyway.
Well, I mean, the funniest thing was it's like you've got this guy who's a guest appearance, but he's just got such a recognizable voice. And also his voice is quite like, hey, I'm Diedrich Beta. He's got this very kind of low, it's very noticeable. Like, so first of all, I wasn't looking at the screen. I heard the voice go, oh shit, this is the one he's in. Because I'd remembered it from like a long time ago. But also, like, I'm thinking, if you're just watching this randomly, if you're going to cast someone as random bridge crew member who's got two lines, why cast the guy who's got the most distinct voice where it's like,
Yeah.
we need to fire the quantum torpedoes. It's like, that's very dramatic for 2 lines. You know, that's like, it's almost over egging it for the part.
No one will notice him if we've got Gowron here with his eyes.
Well, that was the next episode. That was, was the last one. Yeah.
When you say about firing, we've got like the start of this episode when the Enterprise first gets to the star system, and they're querying why they've been sent there and they can't detect anything. And Picard goes, right, load up 2 probes to do this. And he gives the order to get them ready for firing, which is weird because normally you go, fire them, you've got the probes ready, fire them. So you've got time for the Klingon ship, the Voyager class, to decloak and everything. And then Picard go, oh, hold that order of firing. And it's just, no, you don't do it like that.
Yeah. Normally. It's a bit, and like, so Worf doesn't get a day in the brig, doesn't get a demotion, doesn't get a suspension, just reprimand in your record.
He's got a note on his record.
He did.
Guys, he didn't resign. What were they going to do? That would be throwing away his career. He didn't.
Oh, you're right. Very silly. Like, and that brings to my, when Worf has that whole thing where he goes back to save Jadzia and Sisko's like, you'll never be a captain after this. Like, hey, look, I've got killed a man for laugh in my file. And I'm doing all right. So don't you tell me about reprimands in my record.
All I want is Michael Dorn to like just message Trump with a kind of a screenshot from this episode going, pussy, you need to be made president to get out of that shit.
Yeah.
Kill the man cold blood. I was just lieutenant commander.
Yeah. And then so Worf goes to see Alexander. Are you my father? And he goes, don't worry, I'm sending you off to your grandparents. Like, what? Straight away, like, not even are you gonna stay? No, you cannot stay here. You are going to the grandparents. Goodbye.
I have done my bit. Off to grandparents.
Yeah. Also, he without any explanation, he goes, I'm going to send you to be with my parents, my human parents. Like, sorry, why do you have human parents? Like, no time to explain, just fuck off. It's like, it doesn't even.
Look, we are not here to talk, kid. Look.
Yeah. Because that would have meant nothing. Like, that kid must have been his dad, and then he's throwing in, he's got human parents, but he's fully.
Alex, I am your father. Now, fuck off.
Yeah, it's what your mother would have wanted. In her dying breath, she said, it's Duras, please fob off Alexander on your parents. And what he should have done, actually, is Alexander should have gone, are you my father? And Worf should have gone, call me Iceman.
And just as she's dying, it's like, don't throw away your promising career by resigning, motherfucker.
Yeah, reprimand. And then, in fact, there should have been a follow-up scene where Picard go, oh, so I see you fucked off Alexander to your I'll put a reprimand in your parenting record.
The extended edition where you have Kayla on the floor and she keeps going, and send Alexander to your parents. And resign.
And just finally... It's funny, I'm going to bring up the deleted scene from Picard where Picard kind of meets Jack and kind of like after a while he just, when he then later on sees Worf again for the first time, goes, fuck it, you're right. It is quite surprising when a kid just appears out of nowhere. Fuck it. I didn't get it before, but I think I might fuck this one off to the Titan.
He goes to talk to Worf and he's like, Worf, I have a serious problem. I found out I've got a son. Yes, you have a son. The problem is that my parents have already passed away, Worf, so what the fuck do I do? He doesn't have any grandparents.
Or he just phones up and he goes like, so, Mr. Worf, my son's just a bit like a big surprise. Like, I know you're in a similar situation. It's a bit tense between me and the lad. I really want to bond with him. What would you suggest? Sorry, fucking him off to Earth and seeing him once every few years when the plot demands it. I mean, if you say so.
Like, Worf, if you help me with this, I will remove that reprimand from your record.
or, you know that time when you killed a dude in cold blood? Actually, coincidentally, when you met your son, I made that just go away with a reprimand.
Yes,
Well,
yes.
something I want you to sort for me, Mr. Ambassador.
Oh dear. But yes, so that was the Emissary and Reunion. Next week, we will be back to talk about Redemption Parts 1 and 2, the finale of Season 4, and the premiere episode of Season 5, which features the Klingon Civil War that is hinted may be coming at this point. And we'll see if we meet any more of the Duras family in that one. And in the meantime, you can get in touch with us. We are at RetrekPod. We are retrekpod@gmail.com. We're on all the socials, including Retrek Model Studios on YouTube,
which is back up and running.
Hey.
Five videos have gone out so far this year. I've started a big project. I'm busy building.
Oh, that's a lot bigger than I thought it would be.
People might recognise the Delta Flyer.
I didn't know I had an escape hatch which just pinged like that. That's very attention to detail.
Yeah. To be fair, in the finished model, this part will be detachable because I want to see all the work I'm doing on the interior.
Looks awesome, mate.
And Dr. Squee, what have we got coming up on the Dr. Squee show?
You and I just earlier this week with Papa Bear Paul G, we talked about the Christmas episode of Doctor Who Joy to the World and the War Games in Colour in a Gallifrey Stands moment. So check that out now.
Fantastic. And thanks for trekking with us this time. We will see you next time on the Retrek.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Drag off with a reprimand.
Fascinating.